I hope you're all okay. Welcome to today's session on raising a resilient and mentally strong team. We are so glad that you could join us this evening. My name is Rachel Mali, and I'll be your moderator for this session. We are so excited to continue the Parents webinar series that we began 2 months ago, and I'm happy that you're here today. So if this is your first time engaging with ADMI, we are a leading creative media and technology training institute based in Nairobi. We equip young creatives with the training, the mentorship, and the platform that they need to turn their passion into a profession. We offer practical training in courses such as film and TV, animation, graphic design, sound engineering, and multimedia. So to make sure that this session goes on very well, please make sure your microphone is on mute. However, if you'd like to say something, if you'd like to contribute to today's topic, please do not hesitate to use the chat function. We'll be happy to hear from you. So on to the main event. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Eric Mungai, the founder and CEO of Yazua Africa. Please allow me to briefly read out his bio. So Eric is a visionary leader dedicated to reshaping the narrative of masculinity and empowering the next generation of African men. Through Yazua Africa, a boys development organization based in Nairobi, Eric has spent over a decade designing transformative leadership and personal development programs for boys aged 9 to 24. Eric brings deep expertise in human development, psychology, and social transformation, and he's a recognized thought leader in boys' engagement and leadership on the continent. His mission is to ensure that young men grow into ethical, resilient, and purpose-driven leaders, equipped to positively shape their communities in Africa's future. Karibu sana, Mr. Eric.
Asante sana, Rachel. Thank you so much. And welcome to everyone who has joined us today. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me back. Happy to talk about teenagers and their development. As you've heard, my name is Eric Mungai. I'm the founder and CEO of Yazua Africa. Maybe something Rachel didn't mention is Yazua is a Swahili name, and it means to forge, the way a blacksmith forges something. And we are focused on developing and forging young men. So you'll hear me refer as I make today's presentation. Please forgive me. I work with young boys all the time. I am passionate about male development. So if you catch me saying the boy, the man, the boy, the young man, I mean teens. For today's purpose, the presentation is around teenagers and developing resilience in them. But I might, fall back to my norm, which is talking about young men consistently. I invite you to post your questions as we do this on the chat box, and we will come back to them once I'm done with the presentation. We'll just go about maybe half an hour over 10 things that I believe are key in what we need to do to raise resilient young men. And for us, especially within the continent of Africa and this country specifically, we need to be very, very aware and, very intentional as well in how we engage with our teenagers, the experiences we expose them to, the tools we give them. And allow me, as I share my screen, to sort of lay the foundation of today's topic, and why it's important for us to talk about why resilience is very, very important and very, very key. Our sons, our daughters are growing up in a world that is consistently bombarding them with information and with experiences and with things. They are on their gadgets up to 6 hours in a day, research has shown. they are experiencing more peer pressure compared to how we were when we were at their age and around, um, you know, the same age group and age group and age set. They have fewer scaffolding, and by scaffolding, I mean the community that surrounded you as you grew up. And I know it's very easy for us because we didn't see it, or we were not necessarily aware about it. It's very easy for us to ignore the positive impact, and at times negative, but mostly the positive impact it had on our lives. That we were surrounded by a community, and that community consisted of our grandparents, our aunties, our uncles, our elder, older cousins, and all these different people who came in. And for us, some of our homes were a revolving door. And some of those experiences had very, very negative effects on us, a combination of both trauma and abuse. But for some, and for many, it actually meant that the child grew up in a community surrounded, that there were certain eyes and there are certain experiences that helped a child develop the resilient um, ethos and the resilient backbone to overcome things. And resilience is not building just a strong thing that is brittle. Resilience is about having the backbone to navigate the challenges of life, navigate through the water rapids, navigate through the pressures, navigate through the highs and the lows. That's what resilience is. And for many of us, especially for those who grew up in such a setting where the community was present, it would be you had an uncle or a relative or someone who sort of ushered you into the next stage. Let's go for an adventure. Let's go swim. Let's go. You lose your shoes and you come back home and you're beaten. Black, blue, and red. Let's go play in mud. Let's do all these different things. And those experiences, because they were done in a playful way, they began to develop in us the idea and the self-belief that we could overcome anything. So we are going to go through some 10 practices of how, as a parent, what some of the things that you can put into play to help you raise a strong and resilient child in today's world. And one of those things is, of course, anchoring identity before achievement. And that's what I was alluding to, that the idea that you begin to know who you are and to see yourself, and you see yourself in a very safe environment, surrounded by people who make it okay for you to fail. Yeah, that it's okay for your training and your failures to almost be private. Because the thing about resilience, and I feel like the opposite of what resilience is when shame checks in and a child is unable to perform or to do things in life because they are too afraid, because the floodlights are on them. Everyone is looking at them. Everyone is waiting for them, and they become afraid of failure. But in those environments, safe environments, then identity is anchored because you're able to go out, attempt and try different things, and then come back and you fail. There was embarrassment, there was shame, but it happened with friends, and those friends are not looking at you as a failure. They laugh about it, they pat you in the back, and then they tell you, let's try this again. Let's try another day. So resilience does not grow from achievement. We think that your child is resilient because you praise their achievements. And we need to step away from focusing on the achievements, and we should begin to focus on the identity of the child. Who is your child becoming? Yeah, celebrate their values more importantly than you celebrate their victories. I'm not saying don't celebrate their victories, celebrate them, but celebrate their values more. An identity is about a child beginning to develop his identity. Who are you? What is true about you? And one of the exercises that I encourage parents to do is, and you can find this online, is to, and I'll also share something with Rachel, and she can share with those who are present today, is for you as a parent to sit down with your child and map out a family tree, but it's not so important that you remember all the names of the individuals, of the great-grandfather or great-grandmother. What's more important is for you to imagine, to help your son imagine or your daughter imagine, what were the values, what were the experiences 150 years ago, 200 years ago, when that individual lived in this country and where they lived? What was the reality around that area? What did they need to overcome? And what are the values that then defined them? Because those values are the things that build on the identity of who the child is. So it's very important that as you do that, as you begin to focus on this identity and root and building a very strong foundation around that identity, that you also begin to model emotional literacy. And emotional literacy is how you show up when things are difficult, whether you're a dad or a mom, whatever situation you find yourself in. How do you show up when things are difficult? Do you suppress your emotions? Do you express them? And how you express them? Is it in a healthy way, or is it with outbursts of anger and just high energy? Or is it a healthy way of dealing with it? And part of modeling emotional literacy is the ability to name what someone is feeling. Teenagers and kids, the way they are at that stage, especially, what begins to happen is that they're trying to connect their mind, what is happening in their mind, what they are thinking and what they are feeling. And they're in this feeling age and era of their lives when they are constantly being flooded and bombarded with feelings and emotions. And at times those feelings and emotions can be extremely overwhelming. So the idea is for your child to sit down, yeah, and to note and to be clear. What am I feeling? What is this feeling that I'm feeling, and where am I feeling it? And what has triggered it? And then they begin to learn how to go over those emotions and those feelings. Yeah. So then they're not being swayed by, I am afraid, FOMO, fear of being, missing out and being left out of things. And therefore, because I'm so scared of being left out and I don't fully comprehend what is this FOMO that I'm feeling. And FOMO is really just a form of anxiety. And if your child is not able to actually identify that, then they become someone who's constantly swaying from one extreme to another. All the friends are going to this direction, they follow that direction. All the friends are changed, direction, then that happens. So you need your child, I almost said your son, but you need your child to develop a very healthy and very grounded idea of what emotions they are feeling and where they are feeling them, and then begin to identify them and show them and speak about them. Because emotions are signals, they're not enemies. Feeling is not a bad thing. And I know we also live in a world and in a time when feelings, it's almost as if the world wants people to stop feeling. We want, if it's women, they're feeling too much. If it's men, we don't want them feeling anything. And we are trying to bury what emotions and feel and what comes up through emotions and how feelings are. And the reason why we are trying to do that is because we are completely illiterate when it comes to our emotions, and we are unable to see them for what they are, and then process them and figure out what is what and why am I feeling what I'm feeling and where is this feeling guiding me. So they are signals, they're not enemies. And as we prepare our children, as we help them navigate those feelings and what they are going through, then they also now begin to learn how to name the storm that they are going through. But then you also learn, you as a parent, how to step out of the picture. Naming the storm is being aware that this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm disappointed, I'm angry, I feel like a failure, all these different things. Let them give language and words to them. Let them describe them. Because when they have a healthy vocabulary of what they are going through, then they begin to build emotional resilience. Because resilience is not so much, I am strong and capable of pushing through. Resilience is also very mental. Resilience is, what do I tell myself? What am I hearing? What is my mind saying to me? And then what am I believing about myself? So if you're able to build emotional resilience and to be able to associate from failure and feeling like a failure, and your child is able to do that. And that, again, remember, the very first thing that I said is about identity. What are the values that give meaning to his life? so that then he's able to name this storm that he and or she is going through. This is the storm I'm going through. These are the challenges I'm facing right now. And then you also learn how to step away and allow them to struggle. I'll give you an example. I'm a father to three kids. I have a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an almost 3-year-old. He turns 3 in a couple of weeks. And every now and then we go to the forest. We'll go into a forest and we'll remove our shoes and walk barefoot. And when we started doing this, it actually was just more for fun. It was just they're enjoying when it's a bit muddy and stuff and they're loving it. But then I began to realize that, over time, the very first times it was uncomfortable. I actually remember the first time I did it, I had to, they refused to walk. I had to pick them up and do the entire trek of about 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers with them, me carrying them. And we had to stop every few steps because it was tiring. But over time, what I began to notice is that it built the resilience. I allowed them to struggle. But then they're not struggling alone. I was right there with them. So resilience isn't built when you avoid discomfort or you build a world, a bubble for your child, yeah, that they can't experience that certain struggles and challenges. Resilience is built through working through the challenges, the discomfort, the unpleasantness of what life is. And as a parent, you're aware that life will bring a lot of unpleasant experiences your way. So allow your child to struggle and to wrestle with the hard things because there will be hard things, but ensure that they know that you're right there. And, the reason why I'm giving that story is just because this last weekend, I had an organization that we were doing some team building with. And again, every now and then, I'll bring my children with me to some of these experiences, especially if you are in the outdoors. And we happened to actually be walking through, we had a trek that we did through one of the forests here in Nairobi. And my kids, removed their shoes and they wanted to walk by themselves. And people are like, oh, Eric, that's uncomfortable, that's challenging, and all these different things. And I was like, no, I am right here. I'm right here. If they need help, they know that I'm going to rescue them and help them, navigate whatever challenges that they could experience. And it was actually this past weekend that I realized that my first two, my 10-year-old and my 5-year-old, are completely fine. It was the 3-year-old, the 3-year-old boy, almost 3-year-old boy, sorry, who was having a few challenges. And even then, anytime he wanted to be carried, I'd carry him for a few minutes, and then he'd ask to be put down and he'd continue running and walking. And we are doing this in the forest. And what were the challenges? It's he's been pricked by a rock or a thorn here and all these different things. And it's not the first time. It happens. It has consistently been happening every time we do these experiences. So allow them to struggle, but be present. Yeah. And as you allow your child to just go through the difficulty of what life is, you allow those experiences to sort of be like rites of passages, not just milestones. And when people hear, especially through the African lens, when we hear rites of passage, automatically our minds go like circumcision, and we are wrong to think circumcision is one of the rites of passages, but we are wrong to think that that's all it is. Rites of passages were processes when a child, after every stage, would transition into the next level. That's what a rites of passage is. We become so good at celebrating milestones, they won this race, or they have a medal, or he or she was top of the class, he did this, she did this. We celebrate those milestones, and we have these big events that we hold for our children for milestones. And what we teach them is that you'll only be celebrated when you win, when you perform on the outward. And what happens is that we then begin to water down and to dilute the thing that makes them strong. And the things that makes them strong are those rites of passages. And those rites of passages are at times meaningful conversations. When you're having a conversation with your child and you realize, oh, my child has actually become a bit older. Like my experience this past Saturday was that, oh, my son has gone through a certain form of rites of passage. He's now able to push himself a bit further. He's able to be present to enjoy experiences, even though there's a bit of discomfort. that discomfort doesn't spoil the entire experience for him. So rites of passages were meant to transition children and to help them develop. And it's very much like the way we're building, and there's a foundation to be. The way some of the rocks you put at the very bottom and everything else that you feel as you come up determines the quality of the building that will go up and how effective that building will be and how big or strong that building will be. So we need to be aware that we need to create processes that help our children, challenges that signal growth rather than just celebrating the grades and the birthdays and the big things. So allow your child to experience some form of a rite of passage. And then, of course, you teach them to stand and to kneel. Resilience is knowing when to fight and when to take a break. Resilience is knowing when to move on, when to move forward, and when to take a few steps back and reevaluate where you are and what you need to do. Resilience isn't just like going hard at everything, like I'm pushing forward despite and in spite of everything that is happening around me. That's not what resilience is. Resilience is I know how to stand up for myself and others, but I also know how to kneel and how to serve and reflect and apologize and even surrender when necessary. I believe that humility is a hidden pillar of what resilience is. That the ability to be humble and to wait for guidance, to realize that I don't know everything, that I might have walked into this situation thinking I knew everything, but actually, no, I don't know everything, that it's fine for me to take a few steps back and learn, to take a bow and to take a knee. We call it just taking a knee and learning from the experience. And it could be Arsenal losing, it could be you as a Barcelona fan like me who, we lost. We thought we wouldn't. We underestimated one of the teams. It could be him thinking that, oh, I'm going to run up the hill, and then when I get to the top, I'll run down and all these different things, and then realizing at the end of the day, oh, I don't have the strength to keep on going. So those are the things that help your child to sort of learn how to kneel and to embrace humility as well. And then, of course, build an inner circle. The people that your children spends time with, the people that inform his or her behaviors and her choices and her thoughts are extremely powerful. And at times, those people are not you, are not the church, are not the uncles and the aunties and the cousins. It'll just be his or her peers in class. So you need to actually be very, very aware of the people that surround your child, who are shaping the thoughts and the values, who are the people influencing what your child is thinking. So help them develop and find friendships. And even for yourself, surround yourself with families and with friends that you can help your children grow up together with. And when they are younger, especially when they are under about 16 years of age, 17 and below, it's much more easier to mold their experiences and to expose them to the right values. After 17, it becomes a little bit more challenging. Because after 17, a child, especially for a young man, he's already beginning to question who he is and question whether what he has seen and learned from you is something that he wants to keep for himself. So it's important that you expose your children to a very strong, powerful inner circle. And you choose, especially those formative friendships and relationships, keenly, because those relationships are very, very, very key in your child developing the foundation of who they become and how they grow, whether they are courageous, whether they are compassionate, whether they have a strong character, whether they are driven and determined, whether they show empathy. All these different things the seeds are planted when your child is a bit younger. So ensure that that circle is carefully curated. All right, curate it and prepare your child and even prepare yourself for certain experiences that will allow you and your child to go out of your comfort zones. Yeah, allow yourself to push your boundaries, to challenge yourselves, both intellectually, but also otherwise with what you believe and the ideas that you have. Because if you show your child that you're willing to question and challenge some of your belief systems and some of your ideas, then they are also able to do the same for themselves. Then they are not caught up in thinking I can only be one thing. They're able to do hard things. And that is through challenging entitlement and also encouraging a sense of gratitude. That I'm able to do certain uncomfortable and hard things that are both out of the norm for me. Maybe I'm going to volunteer in a community center. Maybe every year for a few days, there are certain things I do. And, you'll hear so many people who've raised strong, amazing kids sharing stories, of what they do and how they've brought up their kids. And I'd encourage you actually to do a bit more studying and, research. Find out this individual, how is he or she as a parent? How are the children? And then begin to learn, what did they do? What are some of the experiences they did and some of the things that they did for their children? And that's how come their children have turned out the way they've turned out. One of the examples for us here in the country is the name has just, I've lost the name, but this parent, this dad, who the children, of course, growing up very, very wealthy a home that has everything that a child would want, good schools and everything. But every holiday, these children would be taken to the farm. And we have experiences of many, 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 many people who've grown up like that. That even though we've grown up in a family setup that would have easily created a very unique bubble and allowed the children to be irresponsible and throw caution to the wind, is that they were engaged in whether it's the farm, the family business, or the family things. And if you remember, and this is not just a thing for the wealthy and the rich, if you remember yourself as well, despite the experiences and the experience that you had growing up, you remember that every holiday we went to shacks. And what happened when we went to shacks? We didn't sit about and do nothing. It was constantly, there was an adventure. There were days you went to the farm and helped, however little you could help. There are days that you just walked around. There are days you went to the river. Many of us learned how to swim in some of these rivers. Was it risky and dangerous? Yes. But that aspect of risk and danger does more for your child's development than the safety that we try to create around our children. So help your child do hard things, but also encourage them and work with them towards them doing something that contributes to the well-being of the family. That they're not just takers, that they give within the family unit. There's also this thing that we started doing with modernization, where if your child cleans their utensils, you give them a stipend. If they clear the table, there is a stipend. If you do, completely separate the idea that I'm giving you a stipend because you've done ABCD, especially within the family home. Have a clear breakdown of these are the things that you're expected to do. Have a list, have a schedule, and then make sure that your child does them. Not because they are going to be given 100 shillings or 200 shillings on Saturday or on Sunday. No, they do them because they are part of that family, and everyone in the family ought to participate in the well-being of the family in one way or the other. Yeah, break away from the idea that you have to entice your child to do what they're supposed to do in the house, or even appreciate them with money and gifts for them to do what they're supposed to do. So push for a contribution in the family setup. And then also the ability to just practice gratitude. And at times, practicing gratitude is the ability for you to notice and be aware that there is a certain privilege that I'm enjoying. Your child is living a life that you only dreamed of at his or her age. Your child is living a life, for the most of it, that was a dream for you. So that is privilege. And the mistake that we make is, and that's why they are unable to develop the grit and the ability that your experiences developed in you. So your child lacks that ability because he hasn't experienced it. And it's very important for you to show them and for them to be aware that this is the other side of reality and the world. And therefore, how do you practice gratitude? Because if you're able to see and to hold with wisdom what you have in your hands and see it and appreciate it for what it is, then what begins to happen is you're able to notice that it is fleeting, that you can lose it, and that there is work and there is effort that goes into having certain things. And as I come to the end, some of the questions that I'll have is, what are the experiences? How do you perceive resilience in your child today? What do you think are some of the things that they've lost? Is it the ability to have gratitude? Is it the ability not to do hard things? What are some of the things that your children are not able to appreciate today? And as they perceive and as they develop the ability to notice the difference, then also equip them with a story that is bigger than themselves. You see that boy that is being held up by his dad and is flying, he has a cape, he's feeling like Superman. If you ask, especially for those ones of us who have sons, if you ask your son who is his superhero, I guarantee you, even your daughter, they have an idea in their mind. Because all of us want to have something that is greater than ourselves. And some of these things are the things that help us overcome our experiences. What were your dreams as a parent, as a father or as a mom, or even as a mom or as a dad to be? What are some of the experiences that you had, or the dreams or the aspirations that you had about what you wanted? And you'll find that if you have a dream that is greater than yourself, it fires you up to keep on going and to keep on trying and to pursue greater things and better things in life. Resilience deepens. It's almost as if its roots go deeper into the essence and into the being of a child when they begin to see that their lives matter in the larger story of humanity, justice or legacy. That there is something greater than myself, that I'm here for a reason. And again, I'll go back to identity and you sitting down and mapping out the family tree and seeing the values. And have a meeting and have a sit down with your children and talk about, this is who we are. My children know that as Mungais, there are certain things that I've jotted down and they're very clear that these are the things that define us. These are our main values. These are the things that speak to who we are. And I'm constantly giving them something greater than myself, but also greater than themselves. So that then they're constantly reaching for something. Yeah? Give your children a standard that they are constantly aiming for and trying to get to. But the way to get to that level is through deep values, positivity, morality, strength of character. That you're not getting there, break away from, it's good for you to give your child the idea of, oh, what kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of house do you want to live in? Where do you want to live? Where do you want to visit? Which plane are you? Those are beautiful things and they are very, very motivating. But if you're able to bring it down to values, what are the things that define you? Why are you here? What are the issues or the problems or the challenges that you want to solve for community and society? That way, then the drive is greater, that then they're able to keep on going, even when they encounter challenges, even when they encounter things that are uncomfortable. And then, of course, be their safe space, not a soft landing. What does that mean? Be present, be there for them, but do not cushion discomfort. Do not create that bubble that I'm talking about that is always sweeping to rescue them. Yeah. When your child falls, when my kids fall and, dad, I've hurt my knee, or I've hit this, and if the child is okay, they actually know. I tell them that is good. That is part of growing up. You're learning, you're growing up. That means you're growing up. And we celebrate it because I want them to understand that there's going to be discomfort, and discomfort should not stop you. Am I here to soothe you and love you and care for you? Yes. But I will not cushion you from that experience. That when you're ready, you'll go through that experience again. If you're trying to climb a tree, I'm there watching. I don't want you to break any limb. But I'm also not going to stop you from attempting to climb it. It's when you're about to jump off that I'm now observing, is it safe? So there is safety, but it's not a soft landing. So home should be the place that your kids run to for truth. It shouldn't be where they run from when they're in trouble. And the way to develop that, the way to help your child have a sense of safety in your space, in your family, in your home, is if they know that they are not judged by the accolades and the successes. They're judged by their values. So resilience is less about building hard shells and being tough and strong on the outside, but cultivating very strong and deep roots. Children who grow to be individuals who don't fear failure, who don't collapse under pressure, and who do not outsource responsibility. The kids who know that I'm going to welcome failure. The more I fail, the better. And the quicker I get to what is right. And I know that as parents, we're usually so scared of the idea of, oh, my child is a failure, my child is going to fail, my child is going to fail, my child is going to fail. And feeling like that's all life is going to be. They're always failing. And, let me finish with a story, a personal story. I usually tell friends that I was a dunderhead, a proper dunderhead in school. And I wasn't a dunderhead because I was born, no one is born foolish, to be quite honest. It's just that I hadn't developed the ability to push through certain challenges, especially academically. I used to be, in a class of about 50 kids, I used to be below 45. There were times I was 49, 48. I had a friend of mine actually, who's still a very close friend of mine, OT. And me and OT, me and OT were constantly at the very back. And then I realized, and this was through a friend actually, someone that I developed a friendship with, and she was actually top of class at that point. She's a doctor today. And I began to notice how she carried herself and the things that she did. And the only thing that I knew was that I wanted to attempt. And even in my attempts, genuinely, and I was never number one. The best I ever was number 12 in the class. But I moved from so far behind. I moved so far from a place of not believing what I am and what I'm capable of and what I can achieve to now seeing, oh, wait, I can actually have something in me. And that began to, sort of stoke a fire inside me to be better and to welcome. So even when I used to fail, actually, I used to do poorly in class. And I'm talking about, but this was as even as I was in high school. I do poorly, but I used to celebrate that the fact that I got I got a few more questions right compared to when I used to get everything wrong. Right? And that ability to welcome the challenge of failure and not allow failure then to define me and to define the kind of person that I am, then sort of help me transition and begin to perform better in my academics and in my class and be present in my academics and my reading and my learning. Therefore, failure is not really something that is it disappointing? Is it painful? Yes. But it's not something that I'm very afraid of. I'm not scared of failing. I'm scared of remaining at the same place and not becoming better. So as you develop your children, as you work with them, as you empower them, as you give them experiences and help them transition and become better as individuals and develop the resilient backbone, you need to be aware that they are going to fail. And when they fail, celebrate that failure by asking, so what have we learned? What are some of the experiences that we've learned from this? What do we pick from this experience and where do we go from here? But failure should not be final. And I'm saying this because I know as Africans, there is this drive for us to always be perfect in everything. I want my child to be number one. I want my child to excel in sports, in academics, in all these different things. And that's too much pressure. And that's why they break. Like I said, resilience is about having your child be able to bend and navigate successfully through challenges. If they are too hard, then they break. They will constantly break. And we're beginning to experience and see that in our homes through mental health challenges, depression, and all these things. Now we have addiction to our phones and our gadgets. Our kids are highly addicted. And what are they looking for? The dopamine hit. The thing that makes them feel good about themselves. Yeah. public praise and adoration then has begun to replace the ability to work hard and to overcome certain challenges. So be aware that your role as a parent is to observe as your child is navigating. It's almost as if, there's a river below you and you're standing on a cliff above the river and you're observing your child as they navigate the rapids and the processes in that river. You're aware that there's a waterfall down there. You're also aware that there's a place that is a bit tricky, but you're allowing your child to go through it. And at times calling out instructions. And if your child gets tired and doesn't want to continue, then they can come back to you for comfort and safety. But then they are sure, they know that you're not saving them from the experience. You're just comforting them so that then they are strong enough to go back and try and navigate that river. So that is our role as parents. That is how you develop resilience. And, I'm happy to share that presentation with all of you. And I'm sure, ADMI and Rachel have your contacts and they'll be able to share that with you. Allow me to stop there so that then we have a few minutes for any questions and any discussion that we might have. I'll ask Rachel to come back up. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. It was such an insightful presentation. And your personal experience, personal story, it was very inspiring. Asante sana. So our audience have been silent, so I'd love to hear from our audience. If you have any questions, anything that you'd like to tell us, Eric is here to address as many questions as we can. So we'd love your engagement at this session for just a few minutes before we close. There's one comment from Kabuzi Lerato. I'd like to read it out as we wait for other parents to share their comments. It's quite long. Absolutely brilliant and insightful session, Eric. Parenting these days feels like navigating swamps and sand dunes. Key takeaways for me: naming the storm helps give children agency over their emotions, creating calm and intentional unpacking of their emotions and strengthens their ability to self-regulate. Then redefining the term rites of passage and allowing our children to experience discomfort with guidance. Another key takeaway: this builds resilience. Also, true about who you choose to be in your inner circle, exposing children to family and close friends who model the same values as yourself becomes a powerful template upon which children build their identity and make choices. Then participate in the well-being of the family. Thank you so much, Kabuzi Lerato, for your comments and sharing your key takeaways for this session. Then there's another one from Vanessa. Quite an insightful session. Thanks, ADMI, for making this happen. Thanks, Eric, for this great session. Looking forward to more webinars like this. Cheers to many.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Allow me to also mention this, as I don't know whether there are going to be any questions. And thank you for that feedback, Lerato, that, also look for help. Find help if you are not sure. Speak to organizations like ourselves, whether it's Yazoo Africa, your pastor, your youth leader, a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist. Find help. Speak to your grandparents and the older people. Speak to your friends. We live at a time when we've sort of begun to build walls around ourselves, and we are afraid to be vulnerable and speak about our experiences with others. And I find that is how then we begin to lose our kids. And by the time you're looking for help, and I see this in our organization and in the programs we run and the sessions that we have with young men, that many parents tend to come when things are burning down, when, there's been a breakdown of trust, there's disobedience, there's disrespect, there are all these crazy things. That's when parents begin to come, oh, Eric, we need help, Eric, we need help. And we do try to support and help the best way we can. But I've also found that those parents who begin early, those parents who begin to engage and to find support for their children, because that support is no longer there. That support that was the community is genuinely not there anymore. Yeah. When was the last time you left your kids? You sent your kids to the village and you left them there for a week. We don't do that anymore. Forget that. We used to go to the village for a full month. Nowadays, you go to the village for 2, 3 days with your children. You are right there with your kids, and then you go back home with them. And I understand that we also live in a very, very corrupt world, and there are many risks. But if you can be able to create those safe environments with friendships, with friends and relationships that are safe, and you're present, that you're aware, there's an awareness of what you're very intentional and very aware of what is happening, then you give your child a lot of the necessary tools and skills that would help them survive and navigate through life. So find help and start, and don't find help when things are dangerous and when things are going sideways. Yeah. By the time you're finding help for a boy who's lost, he's burning down the village. So don't wait for him to imagine that he can burn down the village, find the matchsticks to burn the village, find the fuel to ignite, to burn the village down. Don't wait until that point. Find him when he's asking questions. Find your daughter when she's curious and wants to learn and wants to be better. Yeah. Your children actually need you to also step in as parents. I've had issues with kids and parents coming and saying, oh, this child is constantly on the phone or playing gadgets with their gadgets and everything. And there's a lot of conflict. But then those kids at times just feel like, I wish my parents stopped me. I wish my parents put their foot down, because then this became an addiction. And then this addiction, and the thing about addictions is like it's a pyramid. It's one thing after the other. So if you don't stop this addiction, it sort of opens a doorway to something else greater and something else bigger. Yeah. So step in early and put certain controls and measures for your child.